type 4. So type 4 is called the artist or the individualist. These are the people who own the emotional spectrum. So they've been up, they've been down, they've been every place in between, and they often are on a daily basis. So this is someone who's feeling a lot of emotional intensity. So for example, I'll say they get a nice phone call from a friend, they're feeling on top of the world, they spill a cup of coffee, destroying their pants, now it's a terrible day, and they have just a lot of kind of up and down. While they're going up and down a lot, they spend more time in the darker emotions. So sadness, despair, melancholy, that tends to be home base for type 4s. And I have a type 4 student who says, you know how Eskimos have snow, they have 50 words for snow, because if you're an Eskimo, it matters a lot, you live in the snow. She's like, as a 4, I have 50 words for sadness. Like, I can tell you sad when this happens, and sad, and this, however, like, there's just so much, like, gradation and nuance in the emotional world. So these are people who like emotional intensity, and a lot of 4s will say, I would rather have a deep depression over a flat, average day any day of the year. I don't want flat, that makes me feel dead. I feel alive when I have this intensity, and I want the intensity. These are people who tend to be highly, highly creative. They can come up with absolutely original ideas because they are not encumbered by worrying about what other people are thinking about them in the creative world. They're very experimental, they're very original, they're very interested in authenticity. And for 4s, one of the most painful things that can happen is that they feel misunderstood. They kind of have this sense that no one gets them, and when it is confirmed that someone is misunderstanding them, it's almost like pouring salt on a wound. It can be quite painful. So 4s will say, when I create something and someone really understands it, I just feel at one with the world. It really, really is healing for them. It feels really good. We have all gone to our type 4 friend when we are having a problem because they are very high on emotional intelligence and they are emotionally fearless. So they don't mind going into those dark, difficult places. That's very comfortable for them. It doesn't scare them. They're quite fearless that way. And the attention for type 4s tends to go out to what's missing. So this is somebody who they can have kind of what the rest of us might say is the perfect life, but they are going to focus on the pieces that they don't have. That becomes kind of large in their scale. I was at a training once, and we were doing a panel of type 4s, and there was a woman there she was beautiful, she was educated, she had an amazing job. She said, I just got married to a great guy, but I'm not happy. And she's like, I know I'm a 4 because it's our honeymoon. We're in Half Moon Bay at this beautiful hotel. I'm looking over this gorgeous, onto the sea. And I'm not happy, and I look over at the table next to me and I think, if I could be eating what they're eating, maybe I would be happy. And then she said, and then I realized it's a buffet. Like, I am eating what they're eating. And she said, it's just where my mind goes. Like, everyone else has this thing and I don't, but if I had it, maybe I'd be happy. And it's a mind trick. It's just what the personality does. So the personality, the mind, in its natural state is going to kind of go to what's missing and focus on that a lot. So a lot of 4s will say, I feel like everyone else is inside at the warm fire and I'm the kid outside looking in, like, why can't I get in? Like, I want to be next to the fire. So it can feel like that. What 4s bring to the world, they bring this emotional connection because they are fearless. You can, if you've got some deep, dark problem, your 4 friend is going to be able to help you process it. They can really hold the space for the rest of us emotionally on a whole wide variety of kind of situations. And they're very original, so a lot of 4s come up with that absolutely brand new kind of original idea because their mind isn't afraid to go way outside of kind of conventional norms. They're not encumbered by that at all. So they can really bring us sort of original things. And they're also able to reach our feelings. So a lot of people, I just wrote my second book about the Enneagram in relationships, and the people who are with 4s pretty much all say, my partner just helps me feel more. Like, they kind of open up that whole emotional spectrum for me. Before I was here, and now I've kind of been able to access a lot more of the emotional world because 4s are very good at that. So that's the 4. Any questions?
I have a question. So when, let's say 4, they look like they have their sad emotions, And when I
It's
say like,
such an interesting question. So, so fours often say they struggle with depression, and they don't like that. Like, it's not a good feeling to be struggling with depression, but they do say they feel like their emotional state is real, and they like the reality of it. Like, this trying to act happy when they're not isn't going to work for them. So a lot of times they like that they are able to access so much of the emotion, although if they're struggling with depression, like, that is hard. So they talk about it kind of that way. So I don't know if I would say that they like it. They do report that they like the intensity. Most fours I know say, I like being a four, I don't want to be another type.
but does it help, or do they want others to lift them up, or do they want to be left alone?
No, they want to be understood. And they want to have their feelings acknowledged. So what they say is painful is when you say, come on, cheer up. They don't want to hear that. And they don't want to be fixed, because a lot of times they feel like, because they do have such broad access to the full emotional spectrum, they end up feeling like they're broken, right? And they don't want to be fixed. They want to be seen and basically seen, I think. So again, from my second book, a 4 who's with a 5, she says, my partner does a really good job of honoring my emotions, but not getting swept into it. So he will watch me be depressed, and he'll come and he'll put his hand on me, and that's it. Like, he won't say, let's go for a walk because you're going to feel better, because he knows that's not the space I'm in, but it's more just kind of being there.
Okay.
Does anybody who's a 4 want to talk about that? I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I'm a 4, and with my boyfriend I have exactly that he lets me be who I am, and that's fine. And I'm not fake, I'm just me. I don't need to be fixed.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of the other types, especially us 7s, we're like, you want to be happy, right? Because again, we're putting our thing on everybody. Not everyone wants to be happy all the time. So, and again, that's our frame of reference. But for a 4, it actually can be damaging if we're saying, like, why don't you feel good? Like, they don't feel good, and they actually are okay with the idea that they don't feel good. They just want that space to be held, I think. So, and that's been a big learning for me. Like, I've had to work with that. So, yeah. Because again, our psychology is like, let's cheer up, it'll be better.
Yeah, of course.
Not everyone wants that. And it's not healing for everyone, it can be